Now we are going to talk about the data attributes, right? So I'll focus mostly on the non-callable data attributes, right? Let's before create a class with the name of bank attribute, right? And here we have defined an attributes APR and the value is 1.2. Now remember this APR is the class attribute. When we run this, we can access all the attribute with the dict. We can also access the specific attribute with the dot notation, right? Now let's create the instance of that class. Here we are calling this bank account function as a two times, so this will create a two object. We are storing this, so we have this two object as account one and account two, right? And now let's see the dictionary related to each instance, right? So here we are calling this dict attribute for each instance. So here we can see that we do not have any value in the dictionary, right? So this means that we do not have any attributes related to these object, right? But you can also access this APR attribute. Here we can see that now this APR value, now this APR attribute was defined in the class over here, so we can access the class attribute via the object name, right? In fact, if you modify the class attribute like over here, when here we are modifying the APR value is 2.5, it will also reflect in the object as well, right? So, and if we create the class attribute to the bank account, like over here we are saying that bank account dot account type, we are getting another attribute with the dot notation and the value saving. This is also reflecting in the object as well. We can see that we can access this attribute via the object, right? So as we can see that you can modify the attribute in the class reflected in the instance as well, right? And so basically when we try to access this account one dot any attribute value, first it will try to access that whether this account type is available in the object attribute or not. If it is not, it will look to the class itself, right? So what happens if we'll create a same attribute with the object, like over here we are creating APR attribute with the account object and the value we are setting as 0. So what will happen now? Now when we do this and if we try to access the dict, now what we can see is we have this APR value and we have this APR attribute and then the value is 0. So we have this dictionary, and again you can also check that account 2 is the empty dictionary. So this attribute to each object is specific to that object only. It is not affecting the other object, right? So if we try to access account1.apr, this will give me 0 because APR is available in the account 1. But when we try to access account2.apr, first it will try to access that whether this APR is present in account 2 attribute or not. If it is not, it will try to access whether this APR is available in the class of the account 2 or not, right? So this is the hierarchy it finds, right? So account 1 is 0 because the APR value is 0 for the account 1, but for the account 2 the value was not available, so it hopped towards the class and then it is giving you the value of class, right? Now we can also do the same thing. Again, this is also possible with the get attribute and the set attribute function, right? Here we are getting one object again, thus the again we are getting the account one, so the other object, so this previous one account one will be overwritten. We are trying to check the dictionary of the account one, which will be empty. We are trying to check the APR, which will be the value, and then we're trying to get attribute with the APR. So we are accessing all the techniques over here. Now here we are setting the new value to the account one, right? And then the APR value is 0. And then this time we'll have this dictionary value. When we do this account one dot dict, it will give you this dictionary value with the object, with the attribute and their value. And then the APR value is 0. And then we are also accessing with the get attribute, which is 0 as well, right? You can even add the instance attribute directly to the instance. Like over here, we are saying that account one dot bank, and then we are giving the name of the bank. So we are adding the attribute. Now when we do this, now we have the true attribute now. Again, here we are creating another attribute account 2, but this attribute instance has not been affected of the account one or the previous attribute. You can say that it has not instance anything, right? So as we know how the class attribute and the instance attribute work, right? So class attribute is like attribute that are common to all the instance, but the attribute do not, because the attribute do not live in the instance but in the class itself, right? On the other hand, if the instance attribute are specific to each instance, right, and the value or the same attribute can be different across the multiple instance, right? We can have account one dot apr and then we have the different value. We can have a different value of apr here as well. We can have the different value of apr for account two, right? So in summary, class and the instance have their own state attribute, right? Usually they are maintained in the dictionary, right? Now, one other thing to note is that the difference in the type between classes and the instance dict, right? That means when we access this dict, when we access all the attribute with the dict, we can see that it is a mapping proxy. It is not the usual dictionary. But when we access the account one dot dict, so the dictionary of the attribute, we can see that it is a real dictionary, right? So with instance, right, we can manipulate this dictionary directly. So here we have this class called program. The language is the Python. We can create the object. We can see that. So here p.dict is empty. Now we can see p.dict.version equal to 3.7. Now this we are setting. This is like we are setting the attribute with the dictionary. We are adding the value to the dictionary. We can do that with the object. This is possible. Now we can see the value. Right? We can also access the with the dot version with the dot notation, right? So we can change this dictionary because this is just the usual dictionary, but this is the hashing dictionary, right? This is a mapping proxy, right? Not the usual dictionary, right? And yeah, that's it with the data attributes. Thank you very much.